Okay, good afternoon. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking a look at the concept of legacy reuse. We're going to see what happens when we take a drawing out of, in this case, AutoCAD, take the vector elements out of AutoCAD and transfer them into Inventor to recycle them or reuse that geometry to create a three-dimensional part. This is the process that can be done when you have geometry that exists, however, it is in a 2D state as opposed to a 3D state. What we will end up doing then is taking that two-dimensional geometry and then using that to generate our three-dimensional model. And the other thing I want you to notice also is that we were going to be using some tools in order to extract the actual dimensions from the geometry as opposed to having to figure out what the dimensions are themselves. As long as the legacy geometry is to scale, we will be able to extract that geometry's dimensions very easily. So I'm going to be doing two examples. The first example is this lug anchor, and then the second example will be a hand wheel. Both of them are the anchor itself is in inches, whereas the lug wheel is actually in millimeters. So we'll be doing an example of both ANSI and ISO to see how these work. So with that said, let's start. So the first thing we're going to do is, using our marquee selection in AutoCAD, we're going to select the geometry. I've selected these two views primarily because this is all that I really need to use. I'm going to go Control-C or copy to clipboard. So now we have our geometry copied and we're ready to then make the transfer. Let's go back into Inventor now. So now in Inventor, I am going to start a new file, and that new file is going to be a standard inches template. So I will start the standard inch template. So we are now in our standard inch template. It is already in sketch mode. If you don't have a sketch activated, you can start by clicking on 2D sketch, or also going right mouse button and creating a new sketch right off the bat. I'm already in sketch mode, so all I need to do is go right mouse button and I'm going to click paste. Now when I click paste, what ends up happening is that this, you can see this green box pops up. That means that it knows exactly what it's going to bring in from AutoCAD because it's coming out of the clipboard. However, before I click, or in fact what I'm going to do is I'm just going to demonstrate something here. I'm going to paste the geometry that I brought in right there, and then I'm going to just create another paste. Same thing, but rather than going left mouse button, I'm going to go right mouse button. And when I do right mouse button, I'm going to have paste options. The reason I want to do this is that if you take a look at the options itself, first of all, it tells you what the units are, so it's inches, so we're fine. But what it has, and this is by default in Inventor, the endpoints are usually constrained right off the bat. What I want to do is I also want to have all the other geometric constraints such as tangencies, concentricity, vertical and horizontal constraints already applied to it. So I'm just going to click that. So what I've done here is I've added a check mark to the apply geometric constraints. Click OK. Now I'm just going to click left mouse button to bring that in. Now, what exactly is the difference? It doesn't look very much that there is a difference. If we were to click this line, all we have are these two yellow dots. So those two yellow dots indicates that that there is a coincidental constraint. However, if I click that endpoint, I'm able to rubber band it, as you can see. Okay, which means that it doesn't have anything else other than the coincidental constraints. However, if I go over to this side, I click, well, not only does it have the coincidental constraints, but it also has a parallel constraint. Here, same thing, it does have a parallel constraint. So what this tends to give us then is that it allows us then to move this as if it was a unit. So as you can see that. So the geometry itself now has all of the constraints that it requires for us to actually work with it. So if I was to also click on, say, this portion of the cylinder, I have the tangencies as shown. I click on this line, I click on this line. It shows all of my constraints. And in fact, if I highlight the whole thing, these are all my constraints. These are everything that I need to actually generate that particular part. So with that said, I'm just going to highlight this one and I'm just simply going to delete it. I'm going to highlight these and I'm going to use my move command, and I'm just going to simply move this slightly out of the way. So I'll just move it over here. That should be fine. Now I am going to use this portion only. Okay, so I'm only going to use this portion. This is going to be my main geometry for creation of my three-dimensional part. So again, I'm going to use my move. So here's the move command. Okay, selection, click and drag either a green or a yellow window to select everything. Everything is selected, and we can see that it's green. Then I'm going to use my base point and I'm going to indicate where I want to move it from. Well, I want to take that corner, okay, and move it. However, when I do that, this dialog box pops up. It says the geometry being edited is constrained by other geometry. What I want to do is I want to remove or relax them. So I'm just going to click on OK, or actually the yes button. Okay, and that allows me then to bring it and move it to where I want. Okay, so I've moved it to the position that I want. The next step that I want to do, though, is I also want to rotate it. So I'm going to click on rotate. Rotate is located right here. And I'll do the exact same thing. I'll just highlight all the geometry that I want. Okay, I need my center point, which is right there. I'm going to pick, again, this at location, and the dialog box is going to pop up again. Do I want to relax it or remove it? Yes. So now I can rotate this, and I'll rotate it so it's standing straight up, just like that. Okay, so now my orientation for my part is ready. I'm going to finish my sketch. And now what I'm going to do is that there isn't any dimensions here. I'm not going to add dimensions. I'm going to extract dimensions, or actually sizes, from here. And I'm going to start first of all by taking my extrusion button, which is right over here. I'm going to click on extrude. When I do that, everything highlights. So that means that we have a multitude of closed profiles. However, we're only interested in these closed profiles. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hover over this one right here. Okay, so remember, I have multiple profiles. If I highlight that, so I have multiple profiles. The profile that I want, though, is this one right here to start. So I'm going to click. Now, I want this to extrude in both directions, so I'm going to use my symmetry. So this is my symmetrical button. So it's going to extrude in both directions. But once again, I have no idea what the total width is. Well, in my dialog box right here, I'm going to click the little flyout arrow, which is right next to distance 2 in this case. So I'm going to click the flyout arrow. And then I have a series of flyouts. The most important one that I want, though, is this, measure. So I'm going to click on measure. Now, what exactly does this do? It allows me to click on a line. So for example, this is the line, this is the width of that boss. So I'm going to just click, and what it does is it tells me it's 2 inches, and it actually fills it in, and it extrudes it to 2 inches. So let's click OK, and we have our first feature. So there's our first feature. Okay, so we now are going to take that and we're going to continue from it. So how do we do that though? Because do we have to redraw? No. If I go to my history tree, here is the first extrusion. I'm going to click the plus sign. Okay, on the plus sign it opens up and it shows that there is the geometry. This is the geometry that I need. This is the sketch. I'm going to hover over it, go right mouse button, and then I'm going to take, it's about a quarter of the way down, it's called Share Sketch. I'm going to click on Share Sketch, and what it does is that it brings up the drawing back up. So it will bring that drawing back up. Now, I am just going to do one thing. I'm just going to move this down so I can actually zoom it in a little bit better. So I'm just going to move this over here, just like so. Click Done, Finish, and then I can make that a little bit easier to see, like that. Okay, so what is our next step? Well, we need to create the base. Well, there's the base. That's the base that we want. Okay, so once again, I'm going to click on Extrude. Same thing, it highlights. You can see it's already highlighting. It knows that there's a bunch of closed loops, so that's fine. I'm going to take my cursor and just click on the edge of that. And what it does is it finds the closed loop. So I'm going to click on the closed loop, and as always, it's symmetrical, so both directions. Okay? On the distance A, I'm going to click the down arrow, and I have measure. So I'm going to click on measure, and I'm going to click this edge this time. So it tells me that's 6 inches. So I'm going to click OK. So now what I have is, I have this. Okay, I'm still not done because I still have 4 holes. Okay, so those 4 holes need to be positioned. Well, let's take a look at the bottom. I'm going to do the following. I'm going to take my cursor, I'm going to click on Sketch or Start a New Sketch, and I'm just going to select the bottom surface. So I'm going to select the bottom surface, and it will show me what it is. I need to trace out all 4 edges, so I'm going to use Project Geometry. We talked about this in class. Project Geometry is a little tool which basically allows us to then etch out or copy all or any edge. So I'm going to click on Project Geometry. Now I can individually select the edges. However, if I put my cursor on the surface and click, what that does is that it etches out the edge, which is exactly what I want. Okay, I'm going to use another tool, my offset tool. It's very similar to AutoCAD. I'm going to click on offset, and then I'm just going to select the green edge that I just created. Click, and then I'm just going to drag in. So I'm going to drag in, I don't care how deep it goes, left click. So now I've created an offset. I need to create a dimension. So I need to create a dimension that goes from here to here. Okay. Now this dimension is pretty much the edge to the edge. Okay. So if I click on that, okay, the dimension is highlighted. Click the flyout again. There's measure. Select measure, and then I pick point to point, and it tells me it's 1 inch. Okay, so enter. There it is. It's 1 inch. Now the geometry itself has to be there. It doesn't necessarily need to be converted, but I like doing this. Why? As I explained in class, geometry that is continual and solid is able to be converted. We don't want it to convert. We just want this to be an anchor. So how do we convert again? Well, if I click and hold Control and click around all 4 edges, what I can do is I can then turn them into construction, which is right there. Okay? Now, I'm going to use a circle. I'm going to select the circle and put a circle on each corner. So I'm going to just click on each corner and put a circle like so. Okay? Alright, so now we have 4 circles. Okay, I want each circle to be identical. So I'm going to just click, hold Control, and select each one. Just like that. And then I'm just going to hit the equals constraint, which is right there. Equals. So now all 4 circles are equal. Okay, but we still don't know what the size of the circles are. So if I click and drag, there's a dimension there. I want to also have the circle. So I want to click on measure, and I'm just going to measure the circle. It's telling me what the circle size is. Click OK. Now it's sized the circles. Finish my sketch, and then I'm going to extrude. I'm going to pick inside each circle, and I'm going to then click subtract, make sure that it subtracts or through all, and then I'm going to click OK, and then lo and behold, we have completed our first part. So now we've taken this out of AutoCAD, brought it into Inventor, and we have now got our first reused component. So this is our first part. We're now going to take a look at something a little bit more complex. And again, using the same technique, we are going to create another part. So I'm going to go and I'm going to start up a new file. This time it's a metric file. Okay? So the part that we're going to take a look at and reusing is this one. It's a little hand wheel. So this has two views. However, we're only going to bring one view in at a time. So again, I'm going to highlight this view to start. Control C for copy, or copy to clipboard, either way. And let's go back into Inventor. I'm going to go right mouse button and paste. Okay. So in this particular instance, I don't need to go right mouse button again because it's remembered that it has to also add the other dimensional constraints. So in this particular instance, all I need to do is just click, and now that comes in. So everything is there except for one thing. I'm going to put in a center line. So I'm going to pick the midpoint of the top edge. It could have also been the midpoint of the bottom edge, doesn't matter. And just create a small line, just like that. Okay? So that small line is going to be our center line, or a revolution. Let's finish our sketch. Okay. This time we're going to use revolve. We're not going to use extrude. So we're going to click on revolve. What I want to do then is I want to select the individual profiles, including this. I can also include this one, but I'm not. I'm just going to leave that as is. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select that line I created to create my shape. So there is my blank. Okay, so we have our first solid. Okay, let's go back into AutoCAD. And what we're going to do is I'm going to hit escape. This time we're going to select the second view. Okay, again, Control C to copy. Let's go back into Inventor. Alright, I'm going to click on Start a 2D Sketch. I'm going to select this surface this time. Okay, so I'm going to select this surface. Let's move over here. Before I paste, I'm going to go and I'm going to project, say, the circle so I have the exact center, which is right there. Let's go right mouse button, paste, find a location. Doesn't matter where, say about here, left click, and there is the top. Okay, let's use our move command again. So we're going to use our move command. I'm just going to highlight everything just like that. I'm going to pick the center, and then I'm just going to move it, zoom in so I can see, and pick the center. Okay, so we're done moving. We don't have to rotate or do anything other than that. So we now have our profile on top. Let's finish our sketch. Okay, we're going to use our extrude, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick inside the little triangular sections, just like that. Okay. Now I want to cut, so I'm going to change the Boolean from a join to the cut. Okay. Now, how deep does it have to go? Well, let's just drag it down, drag it down, drag it down, drag it down, drag it down. Let's make this 100 and I'll make it 165 millimeters. So 165 millimeters. Okay? Let's click OK. And what we've done then is we've created those little ribs. There you go. Now we're not done yet because there are still holes. So if I click on if I take a look at my history tree, I have my revolve and I have my extrusion. I'm going to click the plus sign next to extrusion. There is my sketch, right mouse button, and I'm going to go share sketch. Okay, from the share sketch, I'm going to go extrude, and I'm going to pick, it doesn't matter which one you pick, I'm only going to pick one of the circles. Okay? I'm going to have another cut, and then I'm going to have it go all the way through. So it's going to go all the way through. Okay, I'm going to click OK, and it created that. Now, there is a better way to also do this, because if we wanted to change this to, say, a counterbore or countersink, this method would actually be much more useful. So I'm just going to delete that extrusion off of the history tree, and I'm going to use, this is my first use of the hole command. When I click on the hole command, okay, the first thing I want to do is, again, pick a starting point. Okay, so I don't know what the diameter is, so once again, I am just simply going to click here, and I'm going to say measure the diameter. It's going to find the diameter. It just so happens to be 1 inch, which is 25.4 millimeters in diameter. Let's click OK, and now we have our hole. And if we take a look at the bottom, it should have gone through also. All right, we can turn off this sketch on the history tree. Just right mouse button, take visibility off. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to select the hole that we created. We're going to select any cylindrical face, which is right there. We'll keep it at 6, click OK, and now we have that. Now the beauty of using the pattern is that, let's say for example we only needed 3. So there's 3 holes. Or let's say we needed 12 holes. So let's go edit and make that 12. Okay? It really is nothing more than simply right mouse button on that feature, edit the feature, and then edit the parameter as required. So with that said, that is my demonstration on the reuse and legacy reuse. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can watch it as many times as you want, and we will be talking soon. Have a great afternoon.